What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked about the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con drift situation from time to time as different updates have popped up online. Well, we did get an update pretty recently, and it's kind of strange. We're going to go over that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a massive sale for the PlayStation Store that has gone live with actually several first-party Sony games that are on sale. And we're also going to be talking about Nintendo Switch Online service, because now there are quite a few expectations for this week, which will probably lead to disappointment. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, the sequel to, well, what some people see as the best game ever made. Came out right alongside the Switch, back in 2017. It's been a little while, and we were pretty excited to hear more about this game, except we heard that it's going to be delayed into 2023. Specifically, springtime is at least the time period they're looking to release it. And while a lot of people online were like, hey, take as long as you need, unfortunately, investors weren't so forgiving. We can see this posted up by Reuters saying Nintendo share slump 6% on Legend of Zelda delay. Now, it is important to note that Nintendo's stock was actually up 25% year to date before it dropped 6%, so they're still up pretty well for the most part. It's not too surprising, though, to see investors have a knee-jerk reaction to news of a game being delayed, especially since now we're not even sure if it's coming out this fiscal year. That would be going until the end of March 2023. Remember, they said spring. That means it could be April, it could be May. Sure, it could try to fit in right around the anniversary for the Switch and Breath of the Wild a full 6 years later, but not necessarily the case, at least with the information that they're providing currently. So investors kind of moving out potentially just in case to hedge their bets isn't too surprising, but obviously we'll see more and more announcements from Nintendo throughout this year, and I have a feeling they're going to regain that 6% no problem. Also, while we're going to be talking about a big PlayStation sale later in the show, we also have a couple of Xbox games on sale, specifically backwards compatible titles. I like to look through these because they're already kind of cheap on the storefront, and then you throw some pretty big discounts on it and it becomes just a couple of dollars for some pretty good games. Take a look at this list here. This is over on Pure Xbox. I'll link down below to it because you can go here and then just kind of click on the different games and navigate around pretty easily. But like we have Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag at 70% off. All the different Dead Space games, 1 through 3 at 75% off. Dragon Age Origins at 75% off. And then you also have Oblivion, 50% off. Saints Row 4, 90% off. Skate 3, still an awesome game to pick up, 75% off. And check this one out. Time Splitters Future Perfect, 70% off. I double checked, it's $3. That is an awesome pickup there for a Time Splitters title like that at $3. That's one that's still kind of pricey, actually, if you pick it up physically, so absolutely worth it here. But certainly check out this sale down below in the sources. Oh, and we did have the PlayStation Plus games revealed for the month of April. We had already gone over that with that leak, but there was one other little bit of information in there about a certain game actually leaving the PlayStation Plus collection, which is something that you're able to take advantage of if you have a PlayStation 5 and a PlayStation Plus subscription. We can see this posted up over on PlayStation Blog, where they say last chance to download Persona 5 from the PlayStation Plus collection. It'll be leaving the PlayStation Plus collection on May 11th. So right now, if you have a PlayStation Plus collection and all that on your PS5, just go there and claim it. You don't even have to download it, just add it to your library. You may as well. You've been paying for this service potentially for the last several years, or even if you just got it with the PS5, you've paid some money into it. You might as well just add it to your collection, even if you don't think you'll ever play it, just so you have ownership of it and you can download it later on after it leaves this service. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Joy-Con drift situation that we've been going through for the past several years. Basically, the Joy-Cons themselves appear to have a fault that makes it so they're very likely to have a drifting issue where your character, for example, with the left stick will just start running off in one direction, or maybe you have a cursor on the screen that'll move around because of the right stick just being off and not detecting the dead zone correctly. Nintendo's been through a lot with this, specifically class action lawsuits that continue to pop up. However, a lot of them have kind of just stalled out according to Axios, but there are some details that are starting to come out, and I gotta admit, I do not think like a lawyer, because I would have never come up with some of these different arguments that are currently ongoing. For example, take a look at this headline here. the Switch Joy-Con drift lawsuit, dependent on whether kids can sue. Yeah, that is currently the argument ongoing right now. This is in a case between Sanchez and Nintendo of America, based on information provided by lawyers for families suing Nintendo. An arbitrator has ruled that two mothers in the case can't proceed with a class action lawsuit. Now, why is this? Well, this apparently is because the children in the case aren't in a position to sue because they didn't purchase a Switch and allege no cognizable harm to themselves. Nintendo's also said that new system owners are prompted to digitally agree to the console's end-user license agreement. I mean, come on. Who actually reads that? We just kind of next through all of that, right? Which has an arbitration clause and a waiver on pursuing class action suits. I guess the only thing with this, though, as is pointed out here with Nintendo Everything, the EULA must be accepted by someone over the age of 18 as well. So in that case, lawyers for Sanchez's case argue that the kids they're representing can't be bound by the EULA as they are minors. So at this time, it's just pending arbitration, and it's just a way, I think, to hang up the case if you're Nintendo, who clearly is just doing all these different tactics in order to stall out these lawsuits, since class action lawsuits take forever in the first place, and if you've ever been a part of one, you probably forget about it, and then later on in the mail, a check for like $5 or $6 shows up. We went through that whole thing with the PlayStation 3 and the Linux distribution, where they took that option away, but the class action lawsuit went on for, I think, like a decade or so, and then finally checks started showing up for like $11 or something. So yeah, one of these class action lawsuits probably will eventually get through, but by then we'll probably be talking about the next Switch and on to the next set of controllers and joysticks and all of this. But in this case, it is interesting that Nintendo is going the route of, oh, well, they're kids, so they can't actually sue us. There's a EULA. Well, yeah, but the EULA can't be agreed to by... Again, it's all lawyers going back and forth, and again, certainly not how I would consider going about this, but it seems to be working on their side for holding this up. I'm not really sure, though, how this particular case will end up resolving, and if it will just be thrown to the point where it's just stalled out completely. That's basically Nintendo's tactic now until they get to the next generation or next revision of the Joy-Cons, because as I said, I don't think they're going to change them up at all. They might try to refine them over time, but they're kind of stuck. I mean, we're about to be, like, by next year, we'll be 6 years into the Switch, and a lot of people are thinking that Nintendo would then start talking about what's after this system. But let me know what you think about the court case that's currently ongoing when it comes to Sanchez v. Nintendo. Next up, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch online service and why people are now expecting new games to be added to the Super Nintendo and Nintendo library of games, which tends to lead to disappointment. But first, let's take a look at why people think this is going to happen. We can see this post up by Nintendo Life asking, could we be getting new NES and SNES games this week? Now, the reason this is happening is because a Twitter user, NinStatusBot, which tracks maintenance for different games or applications or the system itself. Like, let's say the eShop has to go down for a couple of hours. You'll know about it a little ahead of time with NinStatusBot, as it seems to kind of just look over the website as these schedules are put out there through updates. But it appears that Thursday morning, for about an hour, both the Nintendo and Super Nintendo applications will be down for maintenance at the exact same time. And the reason people are saying, okay, this could be some sort of game selection being added is because the same thing happened for Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings for those applications when those were added. Banjo-Kazooie, when that was added, the N64 application had to undergo maintenance. And then most recently with that Sega Genesis edition with those 5 games, also had to go under maintenance. So now everyone's looking at this thing, okay, Thursday, could we be seeing some games added to Super Nintendo and Nintendo libraries? And I mean, it's possible. I am curious if Nintendo would just announce and then drop them, similar to what they did with the Genesis very recently, where they said, hey, here's 5 games. There you go. They're just on the service. And like, that's it. So of course people are like, okay, this is it. Finally, Super Mario RPG is going to be added in, or Chrono Trigger. And I think that's where our minds go immediately when we start thinking about Nintendo and what games they'd be adding here. But most likely we'll get some weird game out of nowhere. And like, Nintendo could do some interesting ones. Like, they could throw Time Tracks on there, which is a game that most people haven't played, but it'd be interesting to see people's reactions to it, since it'd be like a brand new Super Nintendo game to them for the most part. Most likely they'll pick out something like Race Driving, and then, yeah, everyone will see it and then kind of just move along. I would like to see Nintendo give us Super Mario RPG and basically break the internet for a day there with that one, or a Chrono Trigger. Well, as expected, Nintendo did announce some games, just a little too early since I was able to catch it before Newswave was uploaded. Despite their best efforts to try to make Newswave outdated, it does look like they announced 3 different games heading to the service for Nintendo Switch Online, Super Nintendo, and Nintendo titles. I'll be talking about these tomorrow in Newswave, so make sure you check it out then. Next up, let's talk about the massive spring PlayStation sale that is now live. It's going to be running until the end of April, that being April 27th. Halfway through, though, on April 13th, they said some games will be removed. Not necessarily which ones, so I'm going to tell you, if you go through it now, start to plan these out as if they're going to disappear on the 13th. But I picked out a ton of games, and we'll just also scroll through all of the selections that they have as I take a look here. I'm going to start with NBA 2K22, that's coming in at $23. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut at $50. And this is the good thing about this sale. There are many first-party PlayStation Studios games that are discounted here, which is good because it kind of feels like Sony is trying to do what Nintendo does, which is keep that MSRP as close to a day one full price as they can. And I mean, for Sony now, that's $70. Red Dead Redemption 2, though, at $24. Spider-Man Miles Morales at $30. That's a good pickup for that title. It's a very good game. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart at $50. I will tell you, with Ratchet & Clank, if you're curious about it, you're unsure, it's not a very long game. It's like 14 hours, I think, 15 hours for me to even get the Platinum Trophy, and I never go for Platinum Trophies, so it's a good game, but you might think about waiting for it to even drop a little further. One that you may want to pick up, especially if you enjoyed Elden Ring, Demon Souls at $40. That's a game that'll take you some time. Returnal, though, at $50 is good. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot at $18. Tales of Arise at $36. Resident Evil Village at $30. Batman Arkham Collection. Remember, this has all the different Arkham games, so you get 3 of them there at $9. Always like picking up these collections when they're on sale because you get a lot of value there. The Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection at $10. Tomb Raider Survivor Trilogy at $20. You can see I'm picking out a lot of collections here. Tekken 7 at $10. Alan Wake Remastered, $23. Saints Row 4, $4. BioShock Collection at $10. Metro Saga Bundle at $15. This one caught me off guard a little bit because it's Metro Last Light 2033 and Exodus at $15. That's a really good deal. And then Gravity Rush 2 at $10. But overall, a really good sale. There are hundreds of titles currently discounted. And seeing something like Demon Souls again after playing Elden Ring, I mean, at $40, I think that's a pretty good pickup there. It's just good to see some of these first-party Sony titles go on sale because I do believe it's going to become more and more of a rare thing to see some of these titles from PlayStation Studios drop to like $10 in a year or two. That's just doesn't seem to be the way Sony wants to handle this anymore. So when you can get them discounted, you might want to take advantage. But let me know, of course, if there are any that you picked out here and some suggestions down in the comments. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation 5 resellers. This is something that is still going on over a year after the PlayStation 5 came out, and that is the system itself being sold for well above that MSRP asking price of $400 for the digital or $500 for the disc-based PlayStation 5 system. Well, it looks like Sony is at least trying to come up with different ways to combat this, and we can actually see this post up over on Yahoo Japan with Sony coming up with, I'll say, a creative way to try to at least lower the value of the PlayStation 5 system that people are buying at the register. Now, this is through Google Translate, so hopefully it doesn't sound too weird with like the machine translation here. But essentially, Sony is shipping the PS5 with a sticker that reads "Opened to retailers." The seal is operated by the store. Basically, it's a mechanism that puts a sticker on the PS5 box in advance, cuts off the sticker when selling, sells it, and opens it. The peeled seal is difficult to peel off, and the box may be scratched if it is forcibly peeled off. The idea here is they're just opening the system at retail with a sticker that, I mean, is essentially trying to deter resellers, because if the box gets all damaged and messed up, it's going to be harder to sell it as brand new. The idea being it's used. You wouldn't have as high value as if you had, the full sealed system and all of this. But I still think the PS5 in general, out of box, sells for more than it does MSRP. I've seen it on Craigslist. People are still just selling the PS5 system with a controller next to it and a terrible picture, and it's like $700. So I get what Sony is trying to do here. I don't think this is going to do a lot. Like at one point they were trying to etch with like a pen their name on the box so that it's like branded completely wherever it kind of gets shifted around to and sold. It doesn't seem to matter. These systems continue to sell on eBay every single day at $800 to $900. I actually went through the listing. You can see some of it here. Yeah, it's still up there, unfortunately. It's a little lower than where it was a few months ago. But remember, that was like right in the middle of the holiday season when prices are just inflated anyway. The only way that Sony's going to figure this out is if the chip shortage resolves itself and Sony's able to just start pumping PS5s out like crazy. And just the overall supply overtakes the demand, and then resellers slowly start to move on to the next thing. And hopefully, all the people I see in the comments who are like, oh, it must be nice to find a PS5, you'll be able to walk into a Best Buy, a Target, a Walmart, even just buy it on Amazon, and just pick it up at the MSRP price without feeling like you struck gold somewhere finding the system. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, do you actually take advantage of backwards compatibility for systems that offer it? 56% said, yes, I play older games all the time. 36% said I play older games now and then, but not more than newer games. Then 8% said, no, I don't really care much about backwards compatibility. I think this is the argument that Sony is using internally for not developing a PS3 emulator. I might make a video more on this overall with everything going on here, but I feel like Sony and Jim Ryan are looking at this saying, I don't think a lot of people are going to use that backwards compatibility stuff if we actually put it in there and invested the money for PS3 games to work natively. And they probably have data that shows that. I have wondered though, for like mainstream, like would they take a PS3 game, pop it into the system and be like, wow, this looks great? Or would they be like, whoa, what happened to my TV? This looks really blurry. And then just go back to the newest PS5 titles. I think many of the people here on YouTube or watching all this are very plugged in and we're like, yeah, it would be really cool to play Metal Gear Solid 4. But as we know, graphics tend to sell games at first glance for a lot of the mainstream. So I don't know. I do question if Sony is right in some capacity here and that backwards compatibility is not as big of a deal as a lot of us are acting like it is. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Xiao saying, I feel like an acquisition of an important studio like FromSoft would indeed make sense as a counter to Microsoft buying Bethesda for exclusivity reasons. Otherwise, Sony could lose in the long run. So the acquisition stuff, it's going back and forth, right? And it's turned into, it's gone from, okay, this makes sense for Sony or Microsoft to buy this studio because it would help what they are trying to do. It's getting to the point where it's like, well, Sony needs to buy this company because Microsoft bought them. And it's like a counter now, spending billions of dollars, and it's like this tick for tack thing back and forth. It made sense when Sony bought Nixxes because we're like, oh, they'll help them port stuff to PC. Made sense when they bought Bungie because obviously they're all in on live services. Bungie can help them. And most recently with Haven because let's face it, Haven was probably really cheap and Sony must have really liked the concept. But they get all the FromSoft games anyway. I don't think Microsoft's going to buy them. So there's no real defensive move there. It's a very strange thing because to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but people are still very excited at the prospect of Sony buying FromSoft. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the strange JoyCon drift lawsuit update. Let me think about those arguments there. And then also, what about the big PlayStation spring sale currently ongoing? Of course, leave some suggestions in the comments. And then what Super Nintendo or Nintendo games do you think could be added and what would you like to see added? Thanks guys for watching and I'll see you next time.